Thank you, David Adams. Good morning, everybody. How are you? I'm glad that you're here today. I appreciate your presence. And to those people who are watching on YouTube right now, I wonder what time it is for you. What are you doing? What are you wearing? Are you paying attention? Or is this just side noise? I look forward to seeing you soon. Okay. We actually get about 100 people a week that tune into YouTube. Some of it, those people might be you, but there are people all over the country that are familiar with Unity Temple. They just want to see what's going on here. Yeah, scientists tell us about 14 billion years ago with the Big Bang, existence started. It was nothing more than a humongous dust storm that spread out for hundreds of millions of miles. Then, as time went by, things evolved, and life continued to move forward and upward. At one point in time, life was confined to a one-cell amoeba in the deep, murky waters of the ocean. And it continued to evolve until it pinnacled with its highest creation yet, the human being. A human being that has such creativity and such ingenuity that we're able to build rockets and fly to the moon. We're able to talk to people on the other side of the world instantaneously and see them while we're talking to them. If one of our internal organs fail, we're able to replace it, either by a donor or an artificial organ, in order to extend life. And if that isn't miraculous enough, we are right on the edge of being able to duplicate ourselves. That's right, to come up with an exact duplicate of who we are. It's a process called cloning. I mean, it's very possible at some point in time, God be willing, that I'll be home in bed sleeping and my clone will be up here talking to you and you won't know the difference. And you could all be clones too. I wonder if clones tithe. That is something we'll have to program into them. But anyway, isn't that miraculous? From a one-cell amoeba to being in this temple and singing like David Adams is singing. It's just absolutely miraculous that has taken place. Life is so good, it's good all of the time. Now, everything was moving along quite smoothly until about 50,000 years ago, and then something happened. Something happened that God, the gods, angels, avatars never would have suspected or predicted. Something very, very strange took place, and it happened when the human being developed the capacity to reflect on things. And with that reflection, something took place. It was like a germ, it was like a virus, it was like a disorder of consciousness that came into being. Very, very different. And this virus or this germ or this malady of mind was such that it caused a living thing to reflect back on itself with disappointment, disdain, and despair. Now, this afflicted only 3% of the life population, and that 3% is humanity. Human beings are the only ones on earth, the only living species that do that reflect on themselves with a sense of criticism, with a sense of rejection. Nothing else does that. It's outside the boundaries of nature. It is not natural, yet it has inflicted most of humanity with that very, very same problem, with the effects of low self-esteem, a sense of unworthiness, even a sense of rejection. Now imagine that. The self can reject the self. Isn't that bizarre? Now, most of you have seen what's on the front page of the bulletin. It is called a perceptual duality, and because the image can be seen as two separate images, very different in nature. You look at it one way, and it appears to be an old woman with a long bent nose. And then if you look at it another way, you can see a beautiful young woman. You can't see it at first. It's sometimes very, very difficult. But once you do, you can move back and forth with ease as to what you see. And I present this to you because it is an illustration of how we can see things with many different perspectives. Every person, place, or thing can be viewed by you or can be seen by you with many different perspectives. You can look on something with disdain, you can look on something with great approval. It doesn't make any difference, but whatever you see something as, that determines your reality. Now, this is especially important when it comes to how we see ourselves. How we see ourselves affects everything in our lives. Absolutely everything. Just imagine for a moment that at some point in time you have been imposed upon to believe a certain thing about yourself, something that wasn't very flattering, something that was negative. And in that, you began to see yourself as some sort of a less than person, and you began to act like a less than person, and you began to perceive the world around you reacting to you as a less than person. Your entire reality changes. Now, it's so important how we see ourselves because most of us participate more in self-doubt than we do self-confidence. For most of us, 85% of our self-talk is of a negative nature. For most of us, we treat ourselves worse and talk to ourselves in a more unkind way than we do any other person. Most of us, when given the opportunity to build a self-image, we happen to move towards a more negative self-image than a positive self-image. That's true for most of us. Now, there's a reason behind everything. And so to find out why we are like this, we have to find out what's the reason behind it. What is the reason that we have a tendency to depreciate or to degrade ourselves? And there are three primary issues. The first is perhaps we had overzealous parents who wanted to make us the best that we could be. And when we fell short of those expectations, we were told that we weren't right. We were reprimanded, perhaps even punished, because we didn't live up to the expectations our parents wanted us to live up to. Now, with young, impressionable minds, what happened is we took that as, I am not as good as I should be because I can't please mother or father. And we carried that forward. I am not as good as I should be. The second thing is the society that we live in. Society puts before us a model of how to be. It's an artificial model, but it's everywhere. And that model not only tells us how we should be, but it tells us how we should look, how attractive we should be, how much money we should have, how much we should weigh, how much education we should have, whether we're smart, whether we're dumb. All of these things come together in this artificial model and is put before us and say, if you're not this, then you're not okay. And that is very tough to live up to. In a sense, it alienates us from society, or else it puts us forward with this artificial persona where we try to pretend and be whatever it is we think we have to be in order to be considered okay. The third thing, and this is the biggest culprit of brainwashing or of being saddled with a negative self-image, and that is religion. Religion through the ages has depreciated the human being to a point where we are told that we are unworthy in the eyes of God, and we need to do something in order to gain salvation, and that something usually means suffering through this lifetime. I brought my third grade prayer book with me today. This is what I was given with when I entered the third grade of the church that I was raised in. And I want to read you one of the prayers. It says, O thou great God, who art just and holy, I, thy sinful, unclean creature, come before thee in deep humility, confessing my many sins and my total unworthiness. I am aware of my many failings and deserve thy displeasure and punishment. Now I want you to imagine for a moment a group of third grade kids, precious, young, beautiful third grade kids, sitting around a table in a church basement with that book before them and told to read it aloud in a God-fearing way. It changes everything in the way they see themselves in the life they live. I recognize my many failings, third grade, but I misspelled a word. That's about the extent of it. And it's very confusing to a young mind. Now, at the same time, I want you to imagine a group of young, beautiful third grade kids downstairs in this basement right now gathered around a table with our wonderful youth education director, Katie Barnes. And she's saying, you are beautiful and wonderful in every way. God loves you. And you have so much good in you, and you can go out and you can express that good everywhere you go. You are special. That means so much in the way that child sees him or herself and goes out in the world and expresses themselves. Traditional religion subscribes to the creation story of Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve are in the Garden of Eden. Everything is super cool. They're having a wonderful time. They do something that they weren't supposed to do. They sinned because they ate from the tree of knowledge, which God says you can't do. God got extremely upset, found them unworthy of the good life, kicked them out of the Garden of Eden. And from that point forward, they had to struggle through a very, very difficult life. And fundamental religion tells us because Adam and Eve were sinners, and because every single person came forth from Adam and Eve, that we have their DNA, we have their genes, therefore we inherited the sinful gene, and we're all sinners as well. Every single one of us in here, according to that particular religious viewpoint. We are all sinners, we are all unworthy by nature. Now I ask you, is that the basis you want to use for building your self-worth? Do you really want to fall back on that story? Because we have a choice. We have options. There's another creation story in the Hamadah, which is the Jewish Bible. It was left out of the Judeo-Christian Bible. But that creation story says that God created the creatures of the earth, and God created angels. And everything was beautiful. But God had this insight that there was something even greater that he could do. Excuse the he part. There's something greater that he could create. And so he created the human being that was of a spiritual nature, but what was of the earth. And the human being was greater than all the angels. It had gifts, it had attributes, it had talents that not even the angels had. It could do all sorts of different things. And God considered the human being the masterpiece of creation. He considered us the chosen ones. He considered us the blessed and also the blessing to God. You want to subscribe to that creation story? It's up to you. Both are myths. Neither one are true. You can choose whatever one you want. But there comes a point where you have to say, no, I am not sinful by nature. I'm not unclean. I do not have many failings, and God or whoever is out there does not need to take displeasure in me. I'm a human being doing what I do, trying to be good, moving down my path of evolution, growing, learning, and helping the world be a better place. And each and every one of us do that. We're all good.